Why the Owl House absolutely blew up. The Owl House is what is likely considered to be the largest, most successful animated show to come out of the 2020s decade. The fandom attached to the cartoon skyrocketed as the show went on, and there are a good handful of reasons as to why the show is so good and beloved as it is. In fact, back in 2021, WatchMojo made a great video discussing the 10 factors that the show has that make it so incredible. So what I'll do is go over those 10 things and explain just why those things are what makes the show so special. Two of those points I'll mention first and combine together, because they go into the show's overall approach and genre of it being a mystery horror comedy hybrid that's set in a magical realm. The concept for the show's overarching setting and approach that Nephew came up with was brilliant. The cartoon was tonally and story-wise very refreshing, and it was a cartoon that took on more of a story-driven route, while having a tad more of a mature nature to it compared to a handful of the other Disney TVA shows. And then there are 4 aspects in here that every single cartoon to ever exist has, but the Owl House noticeably exceeded expectations in the categories. Those being the writing, the characters, the animation, and the voice acting. Starting with the writing, it was so good and what was likely had a good chunk of the show's audience stick around. The whole narrative we got with Bellows, the Day of Unity, and eventually the Collector were super fun and captivating. And even the less story-driven episodes never seemed to have stale writing. The world and the stories that can be written around them were practically endless. Whether the writing was focusing on Hexside, or maybe some of the side characters, it never really felt forced. And then speaking on some of those characters, we have an amazing few here in this show. Obviously, Ida, King, and Bellows are the standouts here, as whenever they're on screen, which is a bunch, they bring their charisma and interesting characteristics and stories along with them. Luz is also pretty good as the protagonist who gets transported into the magical universe, although I think I prefer Anne when you talk about that. And then Amity, also really great. She's kind of like a green-haired version of Katra, except she's a witch and has more mommy issues. Okay, now for one of my favorite parts of the show, and it is just one that does not get talked enough about. The animation in this show is insanely good. The setting already makes for some super cool visuals that are put to animation, and all the wacky magic that's featured throughout the show gets some epic montages. And just when you think it couldn't get better, the show selects a single scene from select episodes that are a bit more memorable or dramatic and crank that animation up to 11. You can tell things are really good when things look 5 times more smooth and the foreground is moving alongside the background. It's kind of like that scene in Hell of a Boss where out of nowhere the production value just skyrockets during a fight scene. I just love how this show looks. It's such a beautiful depiction of an even more beautiful world. And you can't talk about the Owl House without at least mentioning briefly the names attached to the voice acting roles. You of course got Alex Hirsch as King and Wendy Malick as Ida, who do such an amazing job. Other than those 2 standouts, there really isn't someone who clearly steals the show, and I love that about it. The whole franchise is clearly such a group effort that was brought into a reality, and all the names attached to the voices, the writing, the illustrating, and the animating did an incredible job. So now I'm actually going to swap out one of WatchMojo's points and plug in one of my own that I think is more deserving of some shoutouts. And that is the stellar music and soundtrack of the show, and that is probably due to Brad Breek being the show's composer for seasons 2 and 3. Breek is amazing. He's responsible for creating the Gravity Falls theme, as well as great tracks from the show, such as E's Requiem and pretty much all of the OSTs. And then one of the points mentioned literally just says Dana Terrace. Terrace is the showrunner and creator, and she definitely deserves the hugest of shoutouts. She was a big name in the storyboarding and animation industry working on said aspects on shows such as DuckTales, Gravity Falls, Adventure Time, Tangled Series, and Amphibia. It's wild, her influence is seen in pretty much all the major Disney TVA story-driven shows. She really was a visionary for the Owl House, and it's so amazing how she was able to see such an ambitious project follow through. And then those few last couple of points here can be summed up with what the show provided for people and just how approachable the cartoon was. The Owl House had something for everyone. It didn't stick itself into a single demographic box. If you wanted a message on being yourself and representation, it's got plenty. If you want an awesome fantasy thriller, it's got you covered. And if you just want to sit down one afternoon and be in for a night of casual laughs and entertainment, the Owl House could provide that too. So by that logic, there really wasn't anything the Owl House couldn't do, except for get a full 3rd season. Anyways, regardless of all that, I think all that is just why the Owl House absolutely blew up.